The dust of the trail clung to Vivian Mitchell's black skirts as she stood at the edge of Shoshone City, Wyoming Territory, 1876. Her 5 exhausted children huddled around her like chicks beneath a mother hen's protective wings. Her once fine bonnet hung limply, framing a face too young for the grief etched upon it. 3 months of hard travel from Pennsylvania had stripped away everything but determination from her slender frame, yet her spine remained straight as she surveyed the bustling mining town that represented her last hope. "Mama, I'm hungry," whispered 7-year-old Emma, tugging at Vivian's skirt. The other children, 10-year-old Thomas, 9-year-old Sarah, 5-year-old James, and 3-year-old Ruth looked up at her with expectant eyes that broke her heart. "I know, darling," Vivian said, smoothing Emma's tangled hair. "We'll find something soon." But the few coins remaining in her reticule told a different story. Her brother's letter had promised work, a place to stay, a new beginning after William's death. What she found instead was a hastily dug grave and news that typhoid had claimed her only living relative just days before their arrival. The stagecoach that had delivered them to Shoshone City was long gone, and with it, any possibility of turning back. There was nowhere to turn back to. The Pennsylvania farm had been sold to pay William's debts, leaving them with nothing but what they could carry. "Mrs. Mitchell." The station master approached, his weathered face pinched with concern. "I'm afraid the boarding house is full up. Mining company men took all the rooms yesterday." Vivian swallowed hard. "Is there anywhere else?" Towns bursting at the seams with the new silver strike. He hesitated. "There's the saloon, but—" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. She wouldn't subject her children to such an establishment, regardless of their circumstances. "You folks need to be somewhere by nightfall," he said, glancing at the sky where the sun had begun its descent behind the jagged mountains. Vivian gathered her courage and the small bundle containing their remaining possessions. "Is there anyone in town who might need help?" "I can cook clean, so." The station master scratched his chin. "You might try Archer's place, just outside town. Isaiah Archer runs the biggest cattle operation in the county. Been looking for a housekeeper since his last one left to get married." "Thank you," she said, managing a small smile despite her weariness. "Which direction?" "North Road, about 2 miles. He pointed. "Big white house, can't miss it." 2 miles might as well have been 20 to her tired children, but they had no choice. Vivian adjusted baby Ruth on her hip, took James's hand, and nodded to the older children to follow. "We'll be fine," she said with a confidence she didn't feel. "Just a little farther." The road stretched before them, dusty and unforgiving in the late afternoon heat. Thomas, trying his best to be the man his father had asked him to be in those final fever-racked moments, carried their heaviest bundle without complaint. Sarah hummed softly to herself, a habit she'd developed after their father's death, as if filling the silence might somehow keep grief at bay. The first hint of Isaiah Archer's property came into view as they crested a small rise. Neat fences lined the roadway, enclosing emerald pastures where fat cattle grazed contentedly. Beyond, nestled against a backdrop of pines, stood a 2-story white house with a wide porch wrapping around its front. "Look, Mama," Thomas pointed. "Is that it?" "I believe so," Vivian replied, hope flickering to life within her chest. Such a fine house surely meant prosperity. Perhaps Mr. Archer would indeed need help. As they approached the gate, a man on horseback emerged from a nearby barn. He rode toward them, his tall frame straight in the saddle, reining his chestnut stallion to a halt a few yards away. He wore no traditional cowboy attire like those Vivian had glimpsed in town. Instead, dark trousers, a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to reveal tanned forearms, and a black vest. His hat shadowed his face, but she could see he was bearded, his features sharp and assessing. "You're a far piece from town, madam," he said, his voice deep but not unkind. Vivian straightened her shoulders. "Are you Mr. Archer?" "Isaiah Archer, yes." He dismounted in one fluid movement, revealing his considerable height. Close up, she could see his eyes were a startling blue against his sun-darkened skin. "I'm Mrs. Mitchell, Vivian Mitchell." She moistened dry lips. "The station master in town suggested I might inquire about work. I understand you're in need of household help." Those blue eyes swept over her, then the children, lingering on their dusty clothes and tired faces. "You've come a long way." "From Pennsylvania," she admitted. "My brother was here, but he—" She couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence before the children. Understanding flickered in his expression. "I see." He knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with Emma. "How long since you all had something to eat?" "This morning, sir," Thomas answered before his sister could speak. "We had biscuits on the stage." Isaiah Archer rose and seemed to come to a decision. "It's nearly supper time. Why don't you all come in?" Relief nearly buckled Vivian's knees, but she remained standing. "We wouldn't want to impose no imposition," he said firmly, leading his horse toward a hitching post. "I was about to eat anyway." They followed him up the path to the house, its white-painted porch a welcome sight after the dusty road. He opened the door and gestured them inside to a large, airy kitchen where pots bubbled on a gleaming cook-stove. The table in the center of the room was massive, crafted of polished oak with 8 sturdy chairs. The widow arrived with 5 orphans. The cowboy looked at them all and said, "My table has room." The simple statement brought tears to Vivian's eyes. She blinked them away quickly, unwilling to show weakness. "Thank you, Mr. Archer." "Isaiah," he corrected, moving to the stove. "Let's get those young ones fed." He ladled stew into bowls with an efficiency that suggested he was accustomed to cooking for himself. Fresh bread appeared from a bread box, thick slices arranged on a platter. Vivian helped settle the children, murmuring reminders about manners as Isaiah placed food before them. "Eat," he encouraged when they hesitated. "There's plenty." Only when the children had begun to eat did Vivian accept her own bowl, the rich aroma of the beef stew making her realize how hungry she truly was. Isaiah took the seat across from her, his own portion modest. "Now," he said once they'd eaten in silence for several minutes, "perhaps you can tell me more about your situation, Mrs. Mitchell." "Vivian," she offered, returning his earlier courtesy. "My husband died 6 months ago. Consumption." The word hung in the air like a specter. "The farm was mortgaged beyond its worth. I sold everything to clear his debts." "Honorable," Isaiah commented. "Necessary," she corrected. "My brother wrote that there were opportunities here. He had a claim." She glanced at the children, all engrossed in their food. "By the time we arrived, he was gone. Typhoid." "I heard about some sickness in the mining camp," Isaiah nodded. "I'm sorry." "We have nowhere to go," Vivian admitted, the words painful. "I'm willing to work hard, Mr. Archer." "Isaiah, I managed our farm alongside William. I can cook, clean, tend gardens, preserve foods, whatever you need." Isaiah's gaze moved around the table, studying each child in turn. "And these young ones, they're all yours?" "Yes." Pride straightened her spine. "Thomas is our eldest, then Sarah, Emma, James, and little Ruth." "Fine-looking family," Isaiah said, his voice softening as he watched James attempt to cut his bread with exaggerated care. "My sister had 5, lost her last year along with her husband. Influenza." "I'm sorry," Vivian said, recognizing the shadow of grief that crossed his features. "Their children are back east with her husband's family." He cleared his throat. "This place is too quiet now." Hope flared in Vivian's chest. Then you might consider, I need someone to keep house, Isaiah said. Cook, clean, manage things. I'm gone from sunup to sundown most days. The pay is $15 a month with room and board for you and your children. It was more generous than she dared hope. When would you want me to start? A rare smile crossed his bearded face. Seems to me you already have. After the meal, Isaiah showed them to their quarters, 2 connecting bedrooms on the second floor, simply but comfortably furnished. My sister's family stayed here when they visited, he explained, a hint of sadness in his voice. It's perfect, Vivian assured him, watching as Ruth toddled around the larger room, examining everything with wide eyes. Bathrooms down the hall, he continued. There's a pump in the kitchen for water and the copper boiler for hot water. I'll show you how it all works tomorrow. Thank you for your kindness, Vivian said softly. Isaiah looked uncomfortable with her gratitude. Get some rest, he said gruffly. Morning comes early on a ranch. After he left, Vivian helped the children wash up and change into their night clothes. As she tucked them into the 2 beds, the girls in one, the boys in another, she felt a sense of cautious hope for the first time since William's death. Are we staying here, Mama? Sarah asked, her small face serious in the lamplight. For now, Vivian answered carefully. Mr. Archer has given us work and a place to stay. I like him, Emma declared. He gave us extra bread. He has a nice horse, Thomas added, clearly impressed by the rancher's mount. And a dog, James piped up. I saw it out the window. Vivian smiled. We'll have to ask if you can meet it tomorrow. Now sleep, all of you. After the children had drifted off, Vivian sat by the window, looking out at the sprawling ranch bathed in moonlight. In the distance, she could make out the silhouette of Isaiah Archer standing on his porch, seemingly lost in thought. A tall, solitary figure against the vast Wyoming night. She wondered what kind of man he was, this rancher who had welcomed 6 strangers to his table without hesitation. Only time would tell if they had found sanctuary or merely a temporary reprieve from their troubles. For tonight, at least, her children were fed, warm, and safe. It was more than she had dared hope for when the stagecoach had deposited them in Shoshone City just hours before. With a silent prayer of thanks, Vivian prepared for bed, her mind already organizing the tasks that would await her in the morning. She would prove herself valuable, indispensable even. She would build a new life here somehow for her children's sake. Morning arrived with the crowing of a rooster and the soft murmur of ranch hands moving about the property. Vivian rose before her children, dressed quickly, and made her way downstairs to find Isaiah already at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in hand, ledgers spread before him. Good morning, she said softly, not wanting to startle him. He looked up, those blue eyes assessing her in the early light. Mrs. Mitchell, sleep well. Yes, thank you. She moved to the stove, noting the coffee pot. May I? Help yourself. He gestured to the cupboard. Cups are there. Vivian poured herself coffee and stood for a moment, taking in the kitchen in daylight. It was well appointed, with a large pantry, a dry sink, and windows that looked out over a kitchen garden in need of attention. I usually have breakfast at 5, Isaiah said, closing his ledger. The men eat at the bunkhouse, but I take my meals here. I'll have it ready tomorrow, Vivian promised. Is there anything particular you'd like? I'm not fussy. Eggs, bacon, biscuits, whatever's easiest. Vivian nodded, mentally cataloging the kitchen's contents. And for lunch? I usually take something with me. He rose, tucking the ledgers under his arm. I'll be out with the herd today, back by supper. I'll have it waiting, she assured him. He paused at the door. Mrs. Mitchell, Vivian, please. Vivian. He seemed to test the name. There's a garden out back that's been neglected since my housekeeper left. You're welcome to anything you can salvage from it, My foreman's wife will be by later with some supplies from town. Mrs. Donovan, good woman. Thank you. I'll start getting things in order." Isaiah nodded, his expression unreadable, and left without another word. Moments later, she heard the sound of hoofbeats as he rode away from the house. The children woke one by one, their excited voices filling the quiet house as they explored their new surroundings. Vivian prepared a simple breakfast from the supplies in the pantry, her mind already planning how to organize her days. By mid-morning, she had the children assign tasks, Thomas and Sarah helping to clean, Emma watching the younger ones while Vivian tackled the garden. The summer vegetables were overgrown but salvageable. Beans, tomatoes, and squash could still be harvested. The herbs had gone to seed, but she gathered what she could for drying. Around noon, a wagon pulled into the yard, driven by a robust woman with graying red hair beneath a practical bonnet. "You must be Mrs. Mitchell," she called, climbing down with surprising agility for her bulk. "I'm Margaret Donovan. My husband Frank is Mr. Archer's foreman." "Pleased to meet you," Vivian said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Please call me Vivian." Margaret's keen eyes took in the children who had tumbled out of the house at the sound of the wagon. "Well now, aren't you all a sight? Isaiah told Frank you'd arrived. 5 little ones. You must have your hands full." "They're good children," Vivian said, drawing them forward for introductions. Margaret's jolly demeanor put everyone at ease as she helped unload supplies: flour, sugar, coffee, salt pork, and other staples. There were also bundles of fabric, needles and thread, and a small bag of hard candies that made the children's eyes widen. "Isaiah said to bring whatever you might need," Margaret explained, handing James a peppermint stick. "He mentioned you came with just what you could carry." "He's very generous," Vivian said, overwhelmed by the abundance. "He's a good man," Margaret agreed, lowering her voice. "Been alone too long, if you ask me. That sister of his was the only family he had nearby." "He mentioned her passing," Vivian said carefully. "Broke his heart, it did. Those nieces and nephews were the light of his life. He built this place thinking they'd all be together someday. Instead, they're back east with their father's folk, and Isaiah's rattling around this big house all by himself." Vivian's heart ached for the man who had so readily opened his home to her family. "How long has he been in Wyoming?" "Came out after the war," Margaret said, helping to store the supplies. "Built all this from nothing. Now he's got the finest cattle operation in 3 counties. "Was he married?" Vivian asked, then flushed at her own boldness. Margaret's eyes twinkled. "Never found the right woman, he says. Or maybe never looked hard enough. Too busy building his empire." By the time Margaret left, promising to return in a few days, Vivian had gleaned a clearer picture of Isaiah Archer, a self-made man, respected if somewhat intimidating to his workers, fair but demanding, private, alone. The afternoon passed quickly as Vivian established a rhythm in her new domain. She prepared a hearty beef roast with vegetables from the garden, baked fresh bread, and even managed to create an apple cobbler from dried apples she found in the pantry. The children, initially wary of their new surroundings, began to relax, exploring the yard under Thomas's watchful eye. The sound of hoofbeats announced Isaiah's return just as Vivian was setting the table. She smoothed her hair, suddenly self-conscious about her appearance after a day of hard work. Isaiah entered, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. He paused, taking in the transformed kitchen, clean, organized, filled with the aroma of good food. "Something smells mighty fine," he said, his usual reserve softening slightly. "Dinner will be ready shortly," Vivian replied. "There's hot water for washing up." He nodded, seeming pleased as he headed toward the washroom off the kitchen. When he returned, his face freshly washed and hair combed, The children were already at the table, freshly scrubbed and on their best behavior. "Mr. Archer," Thomas greeted him formally. "I saw your cattle today. They're very fine animals." "Thank you, Thomas. Been building that herd for 10 years now." Isaiah took his seat at the head of the table, looking slightly bemused at the lively gathering. "I helped Mama in the garden," Sarah announced proudly. "We got beans and tomatoes. And I picked flowers," Emma added, "for the table." Isaiah's gaze fell on the small mason jar of wildflowers serving as a centerpiece. "They look right nice." Dinner proceeded with the children gradually warming to their host, sharing observations about their day. Isaiah responded with patient interest, his usual taciturn manner giving way to occasional smiles at their enthusiasm. "Mr. Isaiah," James asked suddenly, "can I see your dog tomorrow?" "The spotted one. That's Blue. He's a cattle dog but friendly enough. You can meet him if your ma says it's all right." All eyes turned to Vivian, who nodded. "As long as you're careful and do exactly as Mr. Archer says." "Yes, madam," James promised solemnly. After the meal, Isaiah surprised Vivian by helping to clear the table. "That was the best meal I've had in months," he told her quietly. "Thank you. It's my job," she demurred. "You've done more than the job today." His eyes held hers for a moment. "I appreciate it." That night, as Vivian tucked her children into bed, she felt a tentative peace settling over her. They had food, shelter, and safety. It wasn't the life she had planned, nothing like the comfortable farm in Pennsylvania, where she'd expected to grow old with William, but it was a beginning. "Mama," Sarah whispered as Vivian kissed her goodnight, "do you think Papa would like Mr. Archer?" The question caught Vivian off guard. "I think he would," she said slowly. "Mr. Archer seems to be a good, honest man." "I think Papa sent him to us," Sarah continued sleepily. "To take care of us." Vivian smoothed her daughter's hair. "We're going to be just fine, sweetheart. Now sleep." Later, she stood at the window again, watching the vast Wyoming sky with its tapestry of stars. Below, Isaiah's figure was visible once more on the porch. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up toward her window. Vivian stepped back, cheeks warming at being caught watching him, but not before she'd seen something in his upturned face, a loneliness that matched her own. The days fell into a rhythm. Vivian rose before dawn to prepare Isaiah's breakfast, then spent her days managing the household, tending the garden, and caring for her children. Isaiah left early and returned for supper, the only meal they reliably shared together. At first, conversation was stilted, but gradually, a comfortable familiarity developed. Vivian learned that Isaiah had fought for the Union in the Civil War, coming west afterward to leave the bloodshed behind. He spoke little of his time as a soldier, but occasionally, when thunder rolled through the mountains, she noticed how he tensed, his eyes growing distant. Isaiah, in turn, discovered Vivian's quiet strength, her unflagging determination to build a new life. He watched how she managed her brood with firm kindness, instilling values of hard work and honesty. He admired how quickly she had transformed his house into a home, with simple touches, a vase of wildflowers, curtains sewn from fabric Margaret had brought, the constant aroma of good food. The children thrived in the open spaces of the ranch. Thomas, in particular, blossomed under Isaiah's occasional guidance. The boy followed the rancher whenever permitted, soaking up knowledge about cattle, horses, and the business of ranching. "Your son has a good head on his shoulders," Isaiah told Vivian one evening as they sat on the porch after the children were asleep. The night was cool, stars brilliant against the Inkai sky. "He tries so hard to be the man of the family," Vivian sighed. "Sometimes I worry he's missing his childhood." "He's finding his way," Isaiah said thoughtfully. "Boys his age need purpose." "What about girls?" Vivian asked with a small smile. Sarah collects every book she can find. She's read through your entire shelf twice. Isaiah chuckled, a rare sound that Vivian had come to treasure. Smart as a whip, that one. Reminds me of my sister. His expression sobered. Caroline loved books, always had one tucked away somewhere. You miss her very much. Every day. He looked out at the darkness. We were all each other had after our parents died. I came west first, built all this, then sent for her when I could. She met her husband here, good man, banker in town. They were happy. And then influenza, Vivian said softly, took them both within days of each other. Their children, my nieces and nephew, I wanted them here, but her husband's brother claimed guardianship. Said they needed proper schooling back east, not to be raised by a bachelor cowboy. The bitterness in his voice touched Vivian deeply. I'm sorry. Been a year now. I write to them every month. Get polite letters back, supervised by their aunt, no doubt. He shook his head. Enough of that. Tell me about your William. The request surprised her. They rarely spoke of her late husband. He was kind, she said after a moment. Steady, a good farmer, a loving father. We grew up neighboring farms, always knew we'd marry someday. You loved him, Isaiah observed. Yes. She twisted her wedding ring, still on her finger. It wasn't grand passion like in novels, but it was a good partnership. We respected each other. He never minded that I had opinions, even when they differed from his. Isaiah nodded. That's rare enough. When he fell ill, Vivian's voice caught. He fought so hard for the children's sake, for mine, but consumption is merciless. You've done right by him, Isaiah said. Bringing your children to safety, building a new life. I'm trying, she admitted. Some days are harder than others. They fell silent, the quiet between them comfortable now, not awkward as it had been in those first days. The crickets chirped, an owl called from a distant tree, and somewhere far off, a coyote wailed. I should turn in, Vivian said finally. Morning comes early. That it does. Isaiah stood, offering his hand to help her rise. His palm was warm and calloused against hers, the brief contact sending an unexpected flutter through her chest. Good night, Isaiah. Good night, Vivian. As summer gave way to fall, the ranch prepared for winter. Isaiah and his men drove cattle to lower pastures, repaired outbuildings, and stockpiled firewood. Vivian canned vegetables from the garden, dried herbs, and put up preserves. The children helped where they could, even little Ruth solemnly sorting beans at the kitchen table. One crisp October morning, Isaiah entered the kitchen as Vivian was preparing breakfast. I need to ride into town today, he announced. Thought the children might like to come along. You too, if you'd care to. Vivian looked up in surprise. All of us need supplies anyway. Might as well make a day of it. He seemed almost nervous, running a hand through his beard. Weather's turning soon. Good day for an outing. The children were ecstatic at the prospect. They had not been to town since their arrival 3 months earlier. Vivian herself felt a flicker of anticipation. She had been so focused on establishing their new life that she'd scarcely left the ranch. They set out after breakfast, Isaiah driving the wagon with Vivian beside him on the seat. The children settled in the back amidst hay bales. Thomas rode proudly on his own pony, a gentle mare that Isaiah had begun teaching him to ride. Shoshone City looked far different to Vivian now than it had that desperate day in July. What had seemed intimidating then, the bustling streets, rough miners, busy saloons, now simply looked like a frontier town going about its business. Isaiah guided the wagon to the general store, helping Vivian down with a hand at her elbow. Mrs. Donovan will meet you here, he told her. She'll help you find whatever you need. I've got some business at the bank. Children, Vivian cautioned as they climbed down, stay close. The general store was a wonderland to the children, who gazed wide-eyed at the shelves stocked with everything from foodstuffs to tools to candies and toys. Margaret Donovan arrived moments later, her cheerful presence reassuring. "Isaiah's set up an account for you," she informed Vivian. "Said to get whatever you and the little ones need for winter." Vivian was touched by his thoughtfulness. Under Margaret's guidance, she selected warm flannel for night clothes, wool for mittens and scarves, boots for the children, and a variety of household necessities. "For yourself as well," Margaret insisted when Vivian hesitated over a bolt of deep blue wool. "You'll need a proper coat for Wyoming winters. They're not like your eastern ones." The shopping complete, they met Isaiah for lunch at the hotel dining room, a special treat that had the children on their best behavior, awed by the white tablecloths and real china plates. "Mr. Isaiah," Emma asked as they ate, "will there be a Christmas tree at the ranch?" The question seemed to catch Isaiah off guard. "I suppose there could be," he said, glancing at Vivian. "Haven't had one in a while." "We always had one," Sarah said solemnly. "Papa would bring in the biggest pine he could find. And Mama would make popcorn strings," Thomas added. "And paper stars," James piped up. Isaiah's expression softened. "Well, we have plenty of pines. I reckon we could find a suitable one when the time comes." The children's faces lit up, and Vivian felt a rush of gratitude toward this man who continued to exceed her expectations. After lunch, Isaiah surprised them again. "There's a photographer in town," he said casually. "Thought maybe we might get a picture taken, for the children to have." Vivian was stunned by the suggestion. Photographs were expensive, a luxury they certainly couldn't afford. "I'd like to have one too," Isaiah added, not meeting her eyes. "Of all of you, for the house." Understanding dawned. This solitary man, who had lost his sister's family, wanted a photograph of the children who now filled his home with life and laughter. "That would be lovely," she said softly. The photographer's studio was small but well equipped. He arranged them carefully, Isaiah standing tall at the back, Vivian seated before him with Ruth on her lap, the other children grouped around them. The result would be formal, proper, yet undeniably a family portrait of sorts. "Hold still now," the photographer instructed, disappearing beneath his black cloth. "Don't move." In that frozen moment, with Isaiah's hand resting lightly on her shoulder, Vivian felt something shift within her heart. This man, once a stranger, had become something more, a friend, a benefactor. Perhaps something she wasn't yet ready to name. The flash powder erupted, capturing them all in a white burst of light. The ride home was quieter, the children tired from their adventure, Isaiah thoughtful beside her. As the ranch came into view, golden in the late afternoon sun, Vivian felt a surprising sense of homecoming. "Thank you for today," she said quietly. "The children needed it. So did I." Isaiah's hands were steady on the reins. "Been too long since this place heard children laughing," he replied. "Does it good? Does me good too." That night, after the children were asleep, Vivian sat at the kitchen table, mending by lamplight. The day's events played in her mind: Isaiah's kindness, the children's joy, the strange family they had begun to form. William had been gone nearly a year now. The sharp pain of grief had gradually softened to a bittersweet ache. She would always love him, always honor his memory, but she was still alive, still young at 30. Was it disloyal to feel this growing warmth for Isaiah? Her thoughts were interrupted by his entrance. He carried a small glass of whiskey, his customary nightcap. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "Please do." She set aside her mending. He settled across from her, rolling the amber liquid in his glass. "Been thinking," he began. "Winter's coming. Road to town gets bad. Might be good to stock up on more supplies." "Margaret helped me get quite a lot today," Vivian assured him. "Not what I meant." He took a sip of whiskey. Thought maybe you and I should ride in again next week, just us. There's a dressmaker in town, proper ladies' things. Vivian's cheeks warmed. Was he suggesting she needed nicer clothes? I don't need, it's not about need. He met her eyes directly. You've worked hard these months, deserve something pretty for yourself. Mrs. Donovan could watch the children. The thought of time alone with Isaiah away from the ranch sent a flutter through her stomach. That's very generous. It's selfish, really, he admitted, his voice dropping lower. I'd like to take you to dinner, just the two of us. The implication was clear, not employer and housekeeper, but a man and a woman. Vivian's heart beat faster. Isaiah, too soon? He asked quietly. If it is, just say so. I know you're still grieving. It's not that, she said carefully. I'm your employee. There are considerations. Hang considerations. The vehemence in his tone surprised her. I've watched you these 3 months, Vivian. Your strength, your kindness, the way you've made this house a home again. I'm not offering charity or trying to take advantage. I'm asking to court you properly if you'll allow it. Vivian's hands trembled slightly. I have 5 children. I know that. A smile touched his lips. They come with the package. A fine package it is. People will talk. Let them. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. I've been alone too long, so have you. We deserve a chance at happiness, don't we? Put that way, how could she refuse? Yes, she said softly. I'll go to dinner with you. The week that followed held a new tension, a sweet anticipation neither had experienced in years. Isaiah found reasons to be at the house more, lingering over breakfast, returning earlier for supper. Vivian caught herself humming as she worked, choosing her cleanest dress each morning, pinching color into her cheeks. The children sensed the change, watching with curious eyes as the adults circled each other with newfound awareness. Thomas was particularly observant, studying Isaiah with a protective intensity that spoke volumes about his devotion to his mother. On the morning of their planned trip to town, Vivian dressed with special care in her best dress, a navy blue worn to respectability, but still presentable. Margaret arrived early, bringing her daughter-in-law to help with the children. You look pretty as a picture, Margaret declared, her knowing eyes taking in Vivian's flushed cheeks. Isaiah's a lucky man. It's just dinner, Vivian protested weakly. Margaret's laugh was hearty. Honey, that man hasn't taken a woman to dinner in 10 years, not since Caroline tried to match him with the schoolteacher. This isn't just anything. Isaiah was waiting with the buggy, not the wagon this time. He had dressed in his Sunday best black suit, crisp white shirt, string tie. His beard was neatly trimmed, his usually unruly hair slicked down. He looked handsome, distinguished, and as nervous as Vivian felt. You look beautiful, he said simply when she appeared. Thank you. She accepted his hand up into the buggy, acutely aware of his strength, his nearness. The drive to town was filled with conversation that flowed more easily than Vivian had expected. They spoke of the ranch, the children, books they had both read. Isaiah revealed a dry wit she hadn't fully appreciated before, making her laugh with observations about the town's characters. At the dressmaker's shop, Isaiah insisted on waiting while Vivian was fitted for a new dress and coat. The dressmaker, Mrs. Chen, was a Chinese woman married to the town's only doctor. Her skilled hands took measurements, her keen eye assessing Vivian's coloring and form. Green, she decided, pulling out a bolt of emerald wool. For your eyes, and this for trim. She added a darker velvet, very fashionable, very flattering. Vivian protested the expense, but Isaiah was firm. Consider it a bonus for exceptional service, he said through the curtain. And a Christmas gift come early. When they emerged from the shop, the measurements taken and deposit paid, Isaiah suggested a walk before dinner. The afternoon was crisp but sunny, perfect for strolling. He offered his arm, and Vivian took it, conscious of the curious glances from townspeople who knew Isaiah as a solitary figure. "People are looking," she murmured. "Let them," he replied, covering her hand with his. "I'm proud to be seen with you." Dinner was at the hotel restaurant again, but in the evening it transformed into a more elegant establishment, with tablecloths and candles. Isaiah ordered wine, a luxury Vivian hadn't enjoyed since before William's illness. "To new beginnings," he toasted, his blue eyes intent on hers. "New beginnings," she echoed, sipping the sweet red wine over tender steaks and fresh bread. They spoke more personally than ever before. Isaiah told her of his childhood in Ohio, his parents' small farm, his decision to fight for the Union despite his father's objections. "I believed in the cause," he said simply. "Still do. Freedom isn't negotiable." Vivian shared memories of her own upbringing, her courtship with William, her dreams for her children's futures. "I want them to have choices," she explained. "Education, opportunities, especially the girls. Sarah's so bright she could be a teacher or more if given the chance." "She will be," Isaiah promised. "All of them will have what they need." As the meal concluded, Isaiah hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small paper-wrapped package. "It's not much." Vivian unwrapped it carefully to reveal a slender silver chain with a small pearl pendant. "Isaiah, it's beautiful, but it was my mother's," he explained. "Nothing valuable, but it meant something to her. I'd like you to have it." The gesture moved her deeply. This wasn't a casual gift, but a meaningful one, laden with intention. "I'll treasure it," she whispered. Isaiah reached across the table, taking her hand. "Vivian, I know it's been only 3 months. I know you're still wearing William's ring, as you should for as long as you need. But I want you to know that I care for you, deeply. More than I expected to care for anyone again." Tears pricked at Vivian's eyes. "I care for you too. I'm not asking for promises. Not yet." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Just the chance to see where this might lead. For us, for the children, for the family we might become." The word family resonated in Vivian's heart. That's what they were becoming, wasn't it? A family cobbled together from loss and hope, growing stronger each day. "Yes," she said softly. "I'd like that very much." The ride home was quiet, a comfortable silence between them, punctuated by occasional conversation. The stars overhead were brilliant, the air growing colder as night deepened. Isaiah wrapped a blanket around Vivian's shoulders, his arm lingering there. At the ranch, lights burned in the windows, Margaret waiting up for their return. Isaiah helped Vivian down from the buggy, his hands at her waist, lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "May I kiss you goodnight?" he asked, his voice husky in the darkness. Vivian's heart leapt. "Yes." He bent his head slowly, giving her every chance to withdraw. His lips, when they met hers, were gentle, questioning. Vivian leaned into the kiss, her hand coming to rest against his chest, feeling the strong beat of his heart beneath layers of clothing. The kiss was brief but powerful, a promise of more to come. When they separated, both were breathing a little faster. "Good night, Vivian," Isaiah murmured. "Good night." As she entered the warm house, greeted by Margaret's knowing smile, Vivian touched her lips, still feeling Isaiah's kiss. A new beginning indeed. Winter arrived with a vengeance in late November, blanketing the ranch in snow. The house, built solidly with Wyoming winters in mind, remained warm and snug. Isaiah added extra wood to the stockpile, ensuring they would stay comfortable regardless of the weather's severity. Life contracted to the rhythms of the season: early darkness, meals by lamplight, evenings spent in the parlor with books and games. Isaiah taught the children to play checkers and chess. Vivian read aloud from Isaiah's collection of books, everything from Dickens to dime novels that made the children's eyes widen. Their courtship progressed slowly, respectfully. Isaiah was careful to honor William's memory, never pushing Vivian faster than she was ready to move. Their moments alone were precious brief kisses in the kitchen when the children were occupied, conversations by the fire after the little ones were asleep. The new dress arrived in early December, along with Vivian's winter coat. The emerald wool transformed her, bringing color to her cheeks and highlighting her eyes. When she modeled it for Isaiah, his expression of admiration made her blush like a girl. "You are beautiful," he said simply. "The dress is beautiful," she corrected. "Not the dress. You." He took her hands in his. "Always you." As promised, they had a Christmas tree, the biggest pine Isaiah and Thomas could find, hauled into the parlor with triumphant grins. The children decorated it with popcorn strings, paper stars, and a few precious glass ornaments Isaiah produced from a dusty box in the attic. "They were Caroline's," he explained to Vivian. "Seems right they should shine again." Christmas Eve brought a fresh snowfall, transforming the ranch into a glistening wonderland. After a special supper, they gathered in the parlor, where simple gifts were arranged beneath the tree. New mittens Vivian had knitted, candy sticks, a doll for Ruth, hand-carved wooden animals for James, books for Sarah, a pocket knife for Thomas, hair ribbons for Emma. Isaiah's gifts to the children were more substantial, a proper saddle for Thomas, confirming the boy's pony was now permanently his, a set of watercolors for Sarah, a porcelain tea set for Emma, a wooden train for James, a rocking horse for Ruth. For Vivian, there was a beautiful leather-bound journal and a fountain pen. "For your thoughts," he said softly. "You have good ones." Vivian had managed to create gifts for Isaiah as well, a knitted scarf in dark blue that matched his eyes, handkerchiefs she had embroidered with his initials, and a framed drawing Sarah had made of the ranch house. "It's not much," she apologized. "It's everything," he countered, clearly touched by the thoughtfulness. Later, with the children tucked into bed, visions of sugar plums dancing in their heads, Isaiah and Vivian sat before the fire. The house was quiet, peaceful in the way only a home filled with sleeping children can be. "I have one more gift," Isaiah said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a small velvet box, obviously from the jeweler in town. Vivian's breath caught. "Isaiah, it's not what you're thinking," he assured her, though his eyes held promise for the future. "Not yet." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold locket, oval-shaped with an intricate engraving. "Open it," he urged. Inside were two tiny photographs. On the left, William Mitchell's face, serious and kind, taken from a larger family portrait Vivian had among her few possessions. On the right was Isaiah himself, photographed recently in town. Tears filled Vivian's eyes. "How did you?" "Ask Thomas to show me your photographs." Isaiah's voice was gentle. "The past and the present, both part of your life, both men who care about you and your children." The thoughtfulness of the gift overwhelmed her. That Isaiah would include William's image, honoring her late husband rather than trying to replace him, spoke volumes about his character. "I love it," she whispered, touching the locket with trembling fingers. "And I love you." The words slipped out before she could reconsider them, but she didn't wish to take them back. They were true, had been true for weeks now. Isaiah's face transformed with joy. "I love you too, Vivian. Have for some time now." He leaned forward, cupping her face in his hands, and kissed her with a new intensity that sent warmth coursing through her. She responded in kind, her arms winding around his neck, heart hammering against her ribs. When they finally parted, both breathless, Isaiah rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he whispered, Not today, not tomorrow, when you're ready, but say you will. Vivian closed her eyes, savoring the moment. Yes, she answered. Yes, I will marry you. His arms tightened around her, holding her close. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in pristine white, while inside, by the fire's glow, two hearts found their way home. The new year brought a formal engagement, announced first to the children over breakfast. Their reactions varied, Thomas solemn but approving, Sarah and Emma delighted, James confused but happy, little Ruth simply accepting Isaiah as she had from the beginning. "Does this mean Mr. Isaiah will be our papa now?" Emma asked, her small face serious. Isaiah answered before Vivian could. "If you'll have me," he said gently. "I'd be honored to be your father, but I know you had a fine papa already. I won't try to replace him." Thomas studied the man carefully. "You'll take care of our mother, make her happy." "I'll do my very best, every day," Isaiah promised. The boy nodded, extending his hand with a formality that brought tears to Vivian's eyes. "Then I approve." Word spread quickly through the small community. Margaret Donovan was the first to offer congratulations, followed by Isaiah's ranch hands. Letters arrived from Vivian's few remaining friends back east, expressing surprise but genuine happiness for her new beginning. They set the wedding for April, when spring would bring renewal to the land. Vivian chose to be practical, planning to wear her green wool dress rather than commission a wedding gown. Isaiah, however, had other ideas. "I've written to a dressmaker in Denver," he informed her one evening. "She's sending fabric samples." "Isaiah, that's unnecessary. Nothing's too good for my bride," he insisted, kissing away her protests. "Let me do this for you, Vivian." How could she refuse when he looked at her that way? The fabric samples arrived, silks and satins in creams and ivories, and Vivian found herself swept up in the excitement of planning a proper wedding. Winter gradually loosened its grip on the land. March brought the first hints of spring, brave crocus blossoms poking through melting snow, longer days, the return of birdsong. The children spent more time outdoors, their cheeks rosy with fresh air and exercise. Vivian watched them from the porch one afternoon, Thomas and Isaiah working with the horses, Sarah reading under a tree, Emma and James playing an elaborate game of their own invention, Ruth toddling after a butterfly. Her heart swelled with gratitude for this life that had seemed so uncertain just 9 months ago. "Penny for your thoughts," Isaiah said, joining her. He smelled of horses and leather, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "I was just thinking how blessed we are," she admitted. "Last summer I had nowhere to go, no hope, just 5 hungry children and a few dollars to my name. And now," he took her hand, his thumb caressing her palm, "now I have a home, a future." She looked up at him. "A man I love who loves my children as his own." Isaiah's kiss was tender, a promise of deeper passion to come. "One more month," he murmured against her lips. "One more month," she agreed, already anticipating their wedding night with a mixture of nervousness and desire. April arrived with a burst of green across the landscape. The wedding date was set for the 20th, with Judge Thompson coming from town to perform the ceremony. The guest list was small: the Donovans, Dr. Chen and his wife, a few other neighbors and friends from Shoshone City. Vivian's wedding dress, a creation of ivory silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs, arrived from Denver 10 days before the ceremony. Mrs. Chen made final adjustments, her clever hands ensuring a perfect fit. "Very beautiful," she pronounced, stepping back to admire her work. "Mr. Archer will be pleased." "I hope so," Vivian said, turning before the mirror. The woman reflected there seemed a stranger, cheeks flushed with happiness, eyes bright, figure flattered by the elegant gown. Was this truly the same exhausted widow who had arrived in Shoshone City last summer? As the wedding day approached, Vivian found herself thinking often of William. Not with grief now, but with gratitude for the years they'd shared, the children they'd created together. She visited his photograph each night, saying a silent goodbye as she prepared to begin her new life with Isaiah. The wedding morning dawned clear and perfect. Margaret and her daughter-in-law came early to help prepare the house and assist Vivian with dressing. The children were scrubbed and dressed in their best new clothes. Isaiah had insisted on ordering from Denver alongside Vivian's gown. "You look like an angel, Mama," Sarah breathed when Vivian emerged in her wedding finery. Hair arranged in soft curls, a simple wreath of spring flowers crowning her head. Isaiah waited in the parlor, transformed for the occasion with garlands of early wildflowers and ribbon. He wore a new black suit, his beard trimmed, his usually unruly hair tamed. When Vivian entered on Thomas's arm, Isaiah's expression of wonder and love nearly brought her to tears. Judge Thompson conducted a simple ceremony. The children stood close, part of the circle that was forming this new family. When it came time for the vows, Isaiah's voice was steady, confident. Vivian's trembled slightly with emotion, but her "I do" rang clear. "By the authority vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge declared. "You may kiss your bride." Isaiah's kiss was tender, reverent, a promise before their assembled friends and family. Cheers erupted, led by the children, who surrounded the newlyweds in an impromptu group embrace that had everyone laughing. The celebration that followed was joyful good food prepared by Margaret and Vivian in advance, music provided by one of the ranch hands who played fiddle, dancing on the wide porch. Isaiah and Vivian shared the first dance, moving together as if they'd been partners for years rather than months. "Happy Mrs. Archer," Isaiah murmured, his arms secure around her waist. "Perfectly," she replied, her heart full to bursting. As dusk fell, the guests departed, leaving the new family alone. The children, exhausted from excitement, were tucked into bed with special solemnity. This night marked a new chapter for all of them. "Sleep well," Vivian told them, kissing each forehead. "Tomorrow we begin our new adventure together." When she entered the master bedroom, now hers as well as Isaiah's, she found him waiting, his expression a mixture of desire and reverence that made her breath catch. "Come here, wife," he said softly, extending his hand. She went to him without hesitation, their bodies meeting in an embrace that felt like coming home. His kiss deepened, igniting a passion that had simmered between them for months, now free to blaze fully. Later, lying in the circle of his arms, Vivian marveled at the journey that had brought her here from desperate widow to beloved wife, from uncertainty to security, from grief to joy. "What are you thinking?" Isaiah asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That life takes unexpected turns," she replied honestly. "A year ago, I couldn't imagine being happy again. Now I can't imagine being anywhere but here with you." He tightened his arms around her. "When you arrived that day, 5 children in tow, looking like you might collapse from exhaustion. Something shifted in me. This house had been so empty, so quiet. Then suddenly it was full of life again. You saved us," she whispered. "No," he kissed her forehead. "You saved me. I was existing, not living, going through the motions. You and those children brought me back to life." They fell asleep entwined, the first night of many they would share as husband and wife. Spring blossomed into summer, summer mellowed into fall, and winter returned once more, finding the Archer household thriving. The children grew taller, stronger, more confident in their secure home. Thomas, now 11, worked alongside Isaiah whenever school allowed, absorbing knowledge of ranching like a sponge. Sarah's academic prowess impressed her teachers, who spoke of sending her to the normal school in Cheyenne when she was older. Emma had developed a talent for drawing, her sketches capturing the ranch and its inhabitants with surprising accuracy. James, ever curious, followed Isaiah's foreman around, asking endless questions about everything from cattle to weather predictions. Little Ruth, no longer a baby at 4, had Isaiah wrapped firmly around her finger, her sunny nature a constant delight. Vivian blossomed as well, her confidence growing as mistress of the ranch. She managed the household with quiet efficiency, created a productive vegetable garden that was the envy of neighboring ranches, and even learned to ride, accompanying Isaiah on short trips around the property. And in the spring of 1878, the family grew by one more son, William Isaiah Archer, born after a difficult but ultimately successful labor that left Isaiah pacing the hallway while Margaret and Dr. Chen attended Vivian. "He's perfect," Isaiah whispered when he first held his son, tears unashamedly tracking through his beard, just like his mother. "He has your eyes," Vivian observed tiredly, watching her husband cradle their child with hands that seemed impossibly large against the tiny bundle. The other children crowded around, examining their new brother with varying degrees of interest and awe. "He's so small," James observed, poking a curious finger at the baby's cheek. "You were even smaller," Thomas informed him with the authority of an older brother. "Can I hold him?" Sarah asked, her eyes never leaving the infant's face. "Soon," Isaiah promised, "when your mama has rested." That night, with the children finally asleep and the house quiet, Isaiah sat beside Vivian's bed, their son sleeping peacefully in a cradle nearby. "Thank you," he said simply, taking her hand. "For what? For this." He gestured to encompass their son, the room, the entire ranch beyond. "For everything. For saying yes when I asked you to marry me, for loving me, for giving me a family when I thought I'd always be alone." Vivian squeezed his hand. "Do you remember what you said that first day, when we arrived hungry and desperate?" His smile was tender. "I said my table had room." "It did," she murmured, sleep beginning to claim her. "Room for all of us, room to grow, room to love." "And it always will," Isaiah promised, bending to kiss her forehead as she drifted off. "Always." Outside, the Wyoming night spread its starry canopy over the Archer Ranch. Inside, a family born of loss, hope, courage, and love slept peacefully, secure in the bonds they had forged together. The widow and her 5 children had found not just shelter, but a home. The cowboy had found not just a housekeeper, but a heart to match his own. Together, they had created something precious and enduring, a family, a legacy, a love story that would be told for generations to come. In the years that followed, the Archer Ranch prospered, expanding its boundaries and its reputation. Isaiah's innovative breeding techniques produced cattle that commanded premium prices at market. The profits were carefully invested, some back into the ranch, some into education for the children. By 1885, Thomas, now 18, had become Isaiah's right hand, showing a natural aptitude for the business side of ranching. Sarah, 17, was preparing to attend the normal school in Cheyenne, her ambition to become a teacher supported wholeheartedly by both parents. Emma, 16, had developed her artistic talents further, her paintings of Wyoming landscapes beginning to attract attention beyond Shoshone City. James, 12, was the family inventor, constantly tinkering with machinery and devising improvements to ranch equipment. Ruth, 11, was the musician, her piano playing a daily delight in the expanded ranch house. And young William, now 7, was the bridge between generations, possessing Isaiah's quiet strength and Vivian's thoughtful nature. 2 more children had joined the family: Caroline, 5, named for Isaiah's sister, and Joseph, 3, a mischievous toddler who kept everyone on their toes. On a warm September evening in 1885, Isaiah and Vivian sat on the porch swing, watching their children play in the yard as the sun set behind the mountains. Isaiah's hair and beard were now streaked with silver, lines of experience etched around his eyes. Vivian, at 39, remained beautiful to him, her figure fuller after 3 pregnancies, her auburn hair still vibrant against occasional strands of gray. "You ever think about that first day?" Isaiah asked, his arm comfortably around her shoulders. "When you arrived in Shoshone City?" "Often," Vivian admitted. "Especially when I see new families arriving, looking as lost as we were." It had become something of a tradition for the Archers to help newcomers to the area, a welcome basket, offers of work when needed, advice on surviving Wyoming's harsh conditions. Vivian's compassion, born of her own experience, had expanded to embrace the growing community. 9 years, Isaiah mused, feels like yesterday and forever at the same time. "The best years of my life," Vivian said softly, leaning against his solid strength. From the yard came the sounds of children laughing, Caroline chasing Joseph, William explaining something to Ruth with animated gestures. Inside, they could hear Emma playing the piano, a classical piece she'd been practicing for weeks. "I never imagined this," Isaiah confessed. "When I came west, I thought I'd build something to pass on to my sister's children. Never dreamed I'd have 8 of my own. 5 borrowed, 3 homemade," Vivian teased, using their private joke. "All ours," he corrected, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Every single one." As twilight deepened into night, they called the children in for supper. The dining room table, expanded twice over the years, accommodated them all comfortably, just as Isaiah had promised that first day. The conversation flowed around subjects typical for their household: Thomas's plans for expanding the herd, Sarah's excitement about her upcoming studies, Emma's newest painting commission, James's latest invention, the younger children's adventures of the day. Vivian looked around the table at these people she loved beyond measure: her children, her husband, this family they had built together from the ashes of loss and the seeds of hope. The journey hadn't always been smooth. There had been illnesses, arguments, the normal challenges of blending a family and raising children. But through it all, their love had only strengthened, their commitment to each other deepening with each passing year. Later that night, alone with Isaiah in their bedroom, Vivian shared the news she'd been keeping to herself for a few weeks, waiting for the right moment. "I think we'll need to expand the table again," she said casually, as she brushed her hair before the mirror. Isaiah looked up from his book, confusion crossing his features. "Are we expecting more dinner guests, in a manner of speaking?" She turned to face him, a smile playing at her lips. "A permanent dinner guest, in about 7 months. Understanding dawned slowly, then all at once. "Vivian, are you saying?" "Yes." Her hand rested on her still flat stomach. "Child number 9 will be joining us in spring." Isaiah crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering her into his arms with a whoop of joy that surely echoed through the house. 9. Lord Almighty, woman, you're amazing." Vivian laughed, accepting his exuberant kisses. At 47, Isaiah remained as virile and handsome as the day they'd met, and their physical connection had only deepened over the years, their passion for each other a steady flame that continued to warm their marriage. "Are you happy?" she asked when he finally set her down. "Beyond words," he answered honestly. "Every time I think life can't get any fuller, any better, you prove me wrong." They stood together by the window, looking out at the ranch bathed in moonlight, the home they had built, the legacy they were creating. "Thank you," Vivian whispered, echoing the words he had spoken to her after William's birth. "For what?" Isaiah asked, his arms encircling her from behind, hands resting protectively over hers on her abdomen. "For having room at your table that day. For opening your heart to 5 orphans and their desperate mother. For loving us all." Isaiah turned her gently in his arms, framing her face with his hands. "Best decision I ever made," he said simply, before lowering his lips to hers. Outside, the Wyoming night spread its star-studded canopy over the Archer Ranch. Inside, a family born of courage, compassion, and love continued to grow, bound together by the unbreakable bonds forged through their journey from strangers to beloved family. And it had all begun with those simple, life-changing words. "My table has room.